Hello and welcome back to my model railroad. I've expanded things a little bit here. Just wanted to give everybody a quick update on what's been done since the holidays. The holidays were pretty busy, so I didn't get nearly as much accomplished as I would like to. But for starters, a family friend had given me this very nice 262 Prairie locomotive that, oddly enough, is labeled the New York Central, whereas my 060 locomotive was labeled the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe, which I thought that was kind of funny since the AT-SNF used the Prairie and New York used the 060s. Thinking it's probably just universal dye and just change the paint on the side. Anyway, this new engine does work pretty well. It was basically never really used and just held on to for a few years. The only problem is on that switch track right there. It likes the front leading wheels like to grab the point rail and derail the engine. Now, one thing that I was able to successfully do is to take a small screwdriver, remove these front wheels, and run it as an 062. Wasn't really too happy about that because that's not really prototypical of really any engine configuration. I know they did exist, but they were very uncommon. And then what I was also thinking of doing is then removing these back wheels and just having it be another 060. And if you compare it to the underside of my 060, you'll see it's pretty much the exact same engine body layout with, here's where you'd put the front wheels and the back. So I don't think, the performance of the engine would really be degraded. And you can see the two of them right next to each other. They're almost identical. Anyway, so that was kind of my plan. And, I'm not happy about it not working correctly, but I'm not going to not use the engine for the time being. Still having those track quality issues. I saw somebody had commented on my original video with the Atlas track to say that they also used a pair of pliers to straighten one of the point rails, and that actually sounds like a pretty good idea too. I might try that in the future. But anyway, I just wanted to detail. I got a couple more cars, some passenger cars, and from the Bachmann Silver series, or wasn't even familiar with this brand, but just different things that I liked, older carriages, the 1880 series of carriages. So I just actually also got everything wired up. You can see it now, my 4 controllers, everything's all powered from one central plug now. I have my outer loop, my inner loop, and then my less than useful but still fun branch lines or rail yards. Got this engine for Christmas as well, and this engine I've had for quite some time. Oop, wrong way. This is a much older model power controller, and I'm not quite as well versed with the controls. You actually have to flip the switch to go reverse and forward. So also have all of my switch tracks wired up. So every now and then I also have some problems with these switching controllers. They seem to stick a little bit when you try to switch the tracks, specifically this one here. I don't know if that's a manufacturing issue or if I just got a bad lot or whatever, but didn't know if anybody else was having these problems, so any feedback is of course appreciated. Also finally bought some I know these are for coax cables, but some cable ties, so that way I can bundle all the cables together, because right now it's just a mess underneath the table itself. The one thing I also noticed is, I am no electrician, but these Bachmann cables that come with the switch tracks are really difficult to use. Each one of the wires here is actually multiple strands of wires. They're about the thickness of your hair or so, and I found them pretty difficult to solder. I'm not very good with soldering to begin with, so what I ended up doing was just stripping a whole section. First separating these wires, of course, stripping a whole section and then tying them around, say, my other wire in order to make the wires longer. You can buy the Bachmann extensions. I actually have two on those two back switch tracks there, but they're pretty expensive, and they are convenient, but we're talking about wire here. This in my opinion, it shouldn't be $10 just to make my wire a little longer. So, still do not have the grass paper down yet. One thing I was going to experiment with is I came up and found some of these Elmer's foam display boards. I know this is a trifold, I was just going to lay it flat. I have 2 of them, and what I really wanted to do is lay down my track on top of the foam board. I heard that sometimes helps reduce vibration and reduce noise. I've heard actually mixed feelings about it, but what I wanted to try to do that for that reason, and also I wanted to keep the track separated from the wires. As you can see here, right now it is roadbed track, so it isn't that big a deal, but it looks pretty terrible having these wires here. So what I wanted to do, rather than drill holes right through my table here to run the wire down, since the table is more structural than anything else, I wanted to build up kind of a sandwich, lay down my foam board, drill holes for all the control wires, say like that one there, and then underneath the foam board actually run a grid work of basically just anything to hold it up, particularly maybe a cardboard, so that way I'd have different channels to run all my wires, and that would then keep the trains above the wires, keep the track flat on the table, instead of having issues here where the train actually just bumps over the wires, and go from there. Also then I could put my grass paper down on top of the foam board, or I could then even just paint the foam board directly. So anyway, that's just a quick little overview of what I've been working on. It took a lot longer than I thought it would really to wire everything up. I wasn't too happy about that, and I know it looks kind of bad right now, but it is functional, which is a step in the right direction, and hopefully it will get better in the future. So as always, comments are very much appreciated, and hope everybody else is having good similar luck and progress in their train layouts.